Hello, business finance students. I have some information from some students, and I would like to discuss. This is about one of the students who set up his account and received his $50, and he's deep involved in investing. And what he did is that first he set up his Zelle account with through his bank's mobile app. And you all can use mobile app, and also you can many banks apply. You can use the laptop as well. Therefore, it is both laptops and mobile. And it's very simple. All he had to do was to give their telephone number. When the student puts the telephone number in Zelle, then the student, tells me what his telephone number is, and I go to my bank and then say that send this much money to this telephone number, for example. As soon as I say send this to this telephone number, it goes right into his bank account. Therefore, because that bank account is tied to this telephone number, therefore it's straightforward. And also some, accounts are tied to email. Suppose everybody has a unique email. Suppose yours is, johndoe@gmail.com. If I ask you, if you set up your Zelle through your Gmail, your email, then you give me your email. I'll send the money. I go to my Zelle on my bank. It's an app. I say send money to this email. As soon as I say send this money to this email, it goes right into your bank account. What I did, as soon as he set up his Zelle, he gave me his telephone number. First, I sent $1 to make sure everything is okay. Instantly, he receives it. As soon as I click send, it will go bing he will get a confirmation on cell phone that Sayed Merkani sent you $1, and he will see it. As soon as he told me that he received $1, then I sent the remaining $49. And then what he did is a very smart thing. He put $25 of his own money. Now his retirement account has $75. One very smart thing about this particular student is that what happens to next year when he files his taxes, if you look at if you look at 1040, the form that they file for taxes, well, one of the questions would be, did you contribute anything to your IRA? Those who contribute to traditional IRA, he already have contributed $75 up to this point. And this $75 means that he is going to get back some money from the IRS. And how much does he get back? Most likely, if he pays, let's say, 15% of taxes to the IRS, 15% of $75, for example, is $10.50, and he doesn't pay, estate taxes on that also. Maybe that's another $2, $13.50. Therefore, he already has that $13.50 of the tax money, and he can reinvest that one, and therefore that $13.50, imagine that would stay in his account until he retires. And you know how much interest, or if he buys stocks on it, if he goes up. Therefore, these are called tax advantage accounts. Therefore, that is about traditional IRA. And we go in here, and he got the money, and he is doing something very smart. He is thinking about three areas. Diversification. The meaning of diversification is that he's not buying just one stock. He is trying to distribute it between stocks and different things. And that comes from the concept that you say, don't put all your eggs in one basket, because one company might go bankrupt or something. He's not going to put his money, in one company. If it is retirement, you want to distribute it between different companies in case if one of them goes bankrupt, no problem. You will have as many as 200 more companies out there. You are the owner of those, shares of those. Therefore, you will have a good retirement. Also, he is investing wants some stocks that are stable. There are some stocks that don't go up and down. They are usually go slowly up, and there are some which are growth stocks. Growth stocks go up and down, but they will, in long term, hopefully, they will grow significantly. And he is looking into a mix of broad market funds. Funds sometimes are not individual stocks. They are baskets of stocks, we will talk, and also he's buying an individual stock. Also, he bought an individual stock. Let's see what he bought. What he bought, there is something called SPLG. This is called ticker symbol, and it is large cap. Cap means capitalization. Large capitalization means these companies that their value is significant. These are big companies like Microsoft, Apple. These are huge companies. They call them large caps, sometimes blue chips. These are, and those companies are very, as you know, very solid. The possibility of them going bankrupt is very low. Walmart, possibility of Walmart to go, bankrupt is low. Possibility of Apple or possibility of Amazon. These are large cap, which is a smart way. ETF means exchange traded funds. That means when he puts some money in that, the money gets distributed between several major big companies, and it is therefore and also tend to be stable over time, because large companies usually their stocks fluctuate less than smaller companies, and therefore that is he's a careful investor. And I scroll down. What he has done is that one type of a mutual fund he has bought, which is mutual funds are similar to exchange traded funds. It's a basket of stocks, and it is S&P. It mimics S&P 500. The meaning of it is that, let's say if he has $5, he bought this SWPPX, he put $5 in it. Because in $5 there are 500 pennies, $5 is 500 pennies, and here there are 500 stocks, which means on average, somehow think about it, if he's putting 1 penny on each of the stocks, out of $5 he has put $1 goes to Walmart, $1 goes to Apple, $1 goes to Amazon, $1 goes to Bank of America. Therefore it is well diversified. The possibility of this SPPX go bankrupt is almost impossible, because if one day 500 major companies go bankrupt, you know what will happen? All of us will lose our job. The US economy is going to go upside down if Walmart and Apple and Amazon and Microsoft, they all shut down. Imagine that we won't be able to use our computers, Therefore, this is a safe investment usually. Of course, it goes up and down, but it has been, the eggs, not all eggs in one basket. It is in 500 baskets. If one company of these 500 companies go bankrupt, who cares? Nothing is going to happen. Therefore, nothing to be worried. And also, he has put his money in one of the most important stocks of all time. Apple is a very solid stock. One stock of Apple is around $200. Of course, he is not buying one stock of Apple. Maybe he's buying a slice of Apple. Maybe he put $5 in Apple rather than buying one full share. Therefore, there is something about Apple that they say that it has a strong brand loyalty, which is very important. Brand loyalty is that if you have let's say iPhone, you won't go and switch your iPhone to something else. Or if you have, Mac computer, you always try to stay with Mac. You won't try to switch it to HP next time you want to buy another computer. Therefore, that's a very, solid, marketing tool, and therefore that's great. And then he is telling that what Apple products are. The Apple says iPhone, Macs, and Apple Music, iCloud, and Apple Store, and it has services as well. It makes a lot of money in this, and it might not be the fastest growing stock, and now it has settled a little bit in the past 1 year. Apple stocks, are moving up slowly, but it's a solid stock. And it is a long-term winner, and, it gives dividend. Amazon is another stock that is involved. You all know it is involved in e-commerce. It is involved in cloud computing. It's making a lot of money on its cloud computing. The profit margin, we did an analysis of, ratios. Profit margin is that it has a very high profit margin in its cloud computing. That means the expenses is, let's say, when, it makes $2,000, for example, $2,000, the expenses might be only $500 expense, and then it makes $1,500 on $500. Do you see? The $500 brings 3 times more profit for it, means brings $1,500. However, in e-commerce, it has a low profit margin, but the e-commerce is a huge part of it. Let's say it sells, for example, $100 billion. Of course, it's more than that. Let's say it sells $500 billion. Out of 500, only maybe $1 billion or $2 billion of it might be profit, But out of this AWS, it might have an income of, it might have revenues of 30 billion, and out of 30 billion, suddenly you see that it's suddenly $19 billion of it is profit, or profit. And also it is involved in AI. It's a great company. Both of them are great companies, Apple and Amazon. Berkshire Hathaway, it has its own way. It is a company that has its own stocks, and it is an investment company, which means it takes the money of shareholders, and then what it does is that it has Berkshire Hathaway has a lot of money, a lot of cash, and they invest. They invest. Let's say at some point, 5% of Apple stocks belong to Berkshire Hathaway. They sold some part of it. Still, they have it. Coca-Cola. They have these stocks. They bought a lot of Coca-Cola stocks. And they have major insurance companies. One of them, you have heard a lot about Geico Insurance. You may be wondering, Geico one day was a public company, but Berkshire Hathaway bought Geico, and it is one of the money makers, for the Berkshire Hathaway. Therefore, the people buy the stocks, give their money to this company, and this company invests for them. And of course, they invest in stocks, and sometimes these two are public companies, because you can buy the stocks of Coca-Cola and Apple, but you won't be able to buy stocks of Geico, because Geico, all of this, they bought all of the stocks of Geico and made it a private company that belongs to Berkshire Hathaway. Now, we come here, and this student is very careful in investment. He is investing in Johnson & Johnson, which is a drug company, and it pays a lot of good dividends. If, let's say, I am a retired person, I want to invest in some stocks to give me a lot of dividends. Maybe I invest some money in Johnson & Johnson because it pays me more dividends than Apple or other. It's a healthcare, and therefore it is a kind of defensive stocks. And he is also buying stocks of Coca-Cola. When I said that Berkshire Hathaway invests, when they get the money, they invest it in different companies like Coca-Cola. But he also, this student, wants to have his own share of Coca-Cola. And of course, Coca-Cola, I think now one stock is $80. He is not going to invest, to buy one full share. He can, if he wants to spend $80, he can buy one share of Coca-Cola. But most likely he has put $5, has bought a part of, a slice of it. And KO is the, ticker symbol, they call it, for Coca-Cola. Each company has its own ticker symbol. Johnson is JNJ. Amazon is AMZN. And this is another company that is in steel production. He has distributed between his money, this student, between different industries. And he has bought one riskier stock. This SoundHound is an AI, but it is a riskier stock. That means that it might go down suddenly by 20%, and suddenly the next day it goes up by 30%. It's very volatile. And sometimes it's good to have, to invest. And he's not worried. You know why? Because he has put $9 in this money. One share is $9, around $9. If it drops from $9 to $7, he says, okay, I do $2. It has dropped. Hopefully it comes back. That's a 20%, 25% drop when it goes from $9 to $7. But don't be surprised suddenly 2 weeks from now it becomes $15. Therefore, these stocks that are growth stocks usually, move fast up and down and quickly compared to some stocks that are stable. And he is putting his money in real estate. These are called REIT. And that means this company invests it is in real estate. As you see, he has distributed his money, and he is telling that, how much money he is losing. He lost $1.49. He doesn't care. You know why? Because this money is for his retirement. That means when he needs his money would be maybe 30, 40 years from now. Who knows in 30, 40 years? Don't be surprised suddenly, suddenly this one becomes $1,000 and then is slightly down. And let me tell you what is happening in the stock market these days. When Donald Trump came in, he said he's going to fight with, Mexico and in terms of trade war. With Mexico raise taxes, tariffs on their, export to the U.S. and, therefore, he is trying to bring this trade war. And the stock market doesn't like trade war, because, it makes things expensive. And for that reason, in the past 2, 3, 4 days, the stock market has been dropping significantly. Nothing to be concerned, nothing to be worried, because you have not these stocks, these students have not bought these stocks to sell them. Let's say a student who put $50, his portfolio might be $48 by now. But don't be surprised, 2 weeks from now, it goes back suddenly to 55. Therefore, these are nothing, these ups and downs of a stock market. You always, particularly, this is for the, retirement account. And the portfolio of this student is well diversified. And he has, he is learning significantly. And if this student continues the way he is investing, let me assure you that if he strategizes, if he tries to save some money and reinvests again in these stocks, let me assure you, if he wants to be a millionaire, there is, nothing to stop that person. Why? Because you never know. These stocks can go way up. We talked about our stocks of Amazon. We did the calculation. We told you 25 years ago, if you put $1,000, I asked ChatGPT, it would have been $2.5 million today. Therefore, don't be surprised. You never know. Maybe one day this sound, when you buy stocks, don't go and put all of your money, suppose, in SOUN, and suddenly you lose, put $5,000 in it. Suddenly a stock might go down. But it's okay to buy one of them because one of them is $9. You go and buy one Big Mac these days, you have to pay $12, One of the way this student can, push his portfolio up is, let's say he wants to go with with the family, with, let's say, if the person has wife or children, wants to go to McDonald's. These days, if one family goes to McDonald's, he or she has to pay, $50. How about instead of going to McDonald's and paying $50 to McDonald's, how about if we eat at home and this family of 5 can have a dinner by $10? Here you have $40 of remaining. If this $40 is brought into this, portfolio, let me assure you, this $40 extra money after 20, 30 years, don't be surprised suddenly to be $20,000, $30,000. Therefore, the trick is that you have to find some ways to stay away from risky investment. This student is not a risk taker. The way I can tell you is because he is distributing his money in wide range of stocks that we are going to talk a little bit more. This was posted by one of the students, and these are good questions. It says that when evaluating a bond, why is it important to consider the coupon payment in relation to interest rates? That's a very good question. I'll tell you. Coupon is what you get for sure. It's guaranteed. You bought $1,000. You bought a bond for $1,000. It is giving you, let's say, 10% coupon. That means it gives you $100 every year. That $1,000. That's a lot of return it is giving you. 10%, $100 every year for the next 10 years, and after 10 years, they give you $1,000 back. Now, why interest rates can impact, why it is important, the interest rates. Imagine that suddenly the interest rates go up. If they go up and the banks tell that they are going to give 15% interest rates, then at that time you say, oh my God, I wish I didn't have my $1,000 in the bond market because I could put it in the bank and get 15%. Why did I give it why did I buy bond which is giving me 10% coupon payment. Therefore, when that happens, when banks give you 15%, then the value of your bond, which was originally $1,000, drops down. Why drops down? Because you want to get rid of your bond. And because you want to get rid of that, therefore you have to sell it much cheaper. You have to sell it for $600. If your bond is $1,000 and you decide to sell it for $600, the people who want to put their money in the bank and earn 15%, they come and buy your bond. Why do these people do? Because these people know that when the bond matures after, let's say, 6 years, they are going to get $1,000 instead of $600. Their $600 gets closer to par value. Therefore, that's their profit. But therefore, that interest rates, depending on how much interest they can get from the bank, then the value of your bond goes up and down. These are something that yesterday we discussed. Or in other words, if suddenly the bank also are giving 10% interest rate and your coupon is 10%, therefore your bond price will remain at 1,000. Those people who have money in the bank don't come to tell you they want to get to buy your bond because they are already getting 10%, which is $100 a year. However, if the interest rates of the bank drops from 10%, let's say, to 1%, which means every year the bank is going to give them $10 instead of $100, while your bond is giving them $100 every year. Everybody would come and beg you to sell your bond to them. If they do that, then in that case, the value of your bond will go up. And you will say, sorry, I'm not going to sell my bond for $1,000. I'm going to sell it for $1,800. Therefore, you sell it to them for $1,800 and they start getting coupon payment. And however, when it comes next to 10 years, then when they redeem their bond, they get $1,000. But at the same time, they had the benefit of getting coupon payment of $100 every year instead of $10 that the bank was going to give them. Therefore, that's what the impact of interests on bonds are. Anytime the interests go up, that means the banks give more interest, the price of the bond drops because nobody cares about your coupon. However, when the interests drop, the price of your bond goes up because you are getting a good coupon, which is higher than what the bank gives. Therefore, that's the preferred stocks are somewhat, not 100%, somehow they have a structure of a bond. They are not debt, they are equity, they are ownership. In that term, they are more like stocks, but as we said, they are also more bonds. Why? Because rather than the coupon payment that they usually have a dividend. And those dividends, just like coupons, are more like a kind of fixed. Do you remember I said coupon is 10% or 5%? Therefore, those preferred stocks have some type of, dividend that is somehow more like guaranteed. When common stocks, the ones that this student has bought, he has bought common stocks. Therefore, common stocks have a little bit more risk than the bonds and the preferred stocks because they are senior to bonds. And if a company goes bankrupt, they sell the assets of the company. The first thing the court will say is that you have to pay whatever the assets remain have to be given first to bondholders, because bondholders, the ones that sold you bond, you are the bondholder. That means that you have the bond, you have sold the bond to whom? To the banks, to the individuals, to different corporations. Therefore, when your company goes bankrupt, then they sell your company, you have to sell, and you have some assets remaining, $1 million, $2 million, let's say, is in your hand. Court would come and say, okay, out of these $2 million, you owe $1 million, it was a bond. You have to pay them. Then it goes after the preferred stockholders, because the stocks of these preferred stockholders don't go up significantly. They are like bondholders. Therefore, $1 million remain. Therefore, $1 million, the court would say, okay, let's give $600,000 to this bond preferred stockholders, and whatever remains, it remains for the common stockholder. Why the common stockholders gets after them? Because common stockholders are greedy people like myself, like this student. They have put their money in hopes of becoming millionaires. If something goes wrong, of course they have to take the hit. Therefore, there's common stocks therefore go up. They appreciate, hopefully, but the bond doesn't. The bonds also appreciate and depreciate, but they appreciate and depreciate slightly. But guess what? After 10 years, the value of that bond, if it is a 10-year bond, the value is 1,000 regardless. At the beginning, it started at 1,000, but in 10 years, it went up and down based on how the interest rates, acted. If the interest rates dropped, the value of the bond went up. If the interest rates went up, the value of bond dropped. Why it drops and goes up and down? Because this coupon payment is a fixed amount. Therefore, that is, everybody knows how much it is, and the level of interest, the level of the interest of the people wanting to buy your bond goes up and down based on if the interest rates go up and down. Therefore, as I said, it is very easy to calculate the price of the bond. The price of the stocks, is a little bit tricky. And, because you have expectations what's going to happen in the future. Is this company going to be very successful? Therefore, what he does, okay, then it is another question, this student. Bonds, common stock, what are the key differences between preferred stock? We already said preferred stock, common stocks. And how does the fixed dividend impact on price? If the dividend is fixed, it becomes more like a coupon. Do you see? The coupon is a kind of, a dividend that, is somewhat fixed. If it is fixed, the fluctuation is not significant unless it's not significant in price of the bond, unless the interest rates significantly go up or significantly come down. In that case, yes, the price of the bond. Therefore, when we have fixed dividend, therefore the fluctuation is going to be less. Means we will have less volatility, and the common stocks, are more volatile. We go in here. How do the interest rates affect bond prices and stock valuation? We already talked about stocks. Overall, when interest rates drop, it is somewhat good for the companies. Why it is good for the companies? Because companies constantly have to go and borrow money, Don't they buy bonds? When the interest rates, drop, therefore, when interest rates drop, their cost of borrowing is less, because when they go there, they want to borrow money, everybody, if they have to pay interest. Let's say if, this company has to go to a bank to borrow money. If you have a business, for example, you like to see that the interest rates are dropping, because you go to the bank and say, I need $100,000. They charge you less interest. If they charge you less interest, that means you will be a more profitable business because you are paying less interest. Therefore, overall, but not always, overall, when the interest rates drop, that's a good news for the stocks. And that's why many people hold their breath when Federal Reserve, meets, and they are hoping that, they reduce the interest rates and, all those issues. Now we come here and valuing each type of stocks and factors influence investment decisions. Okay, let's see. Let me read it. Explain factors that you consider valuing each type of a stock and how these factors influence. Okay, it is, some people are, are after growth stocks, some after, value stocks, and some are after, defensive stocks, and they all depends on many factors. Let's say if I am a retired person, 90 years old, I don't care about growth stocks. All I care is some stocks that are stable. They don't go up and down, because if I buy a stock, I am 90 years old and suddenly stocks drop, I cannot wait 20 years until, see that good things are happening. Therefore, there are a lot of factors involved in here. Now, I asked the ChatGPT to tell you different classification of, they call it sectors of economy, or sectors in stocks. Stocks are categorized together. One sector is called information technology. They say this person invests in information technology. What are the examples of information technology companies? Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia. And what are the volatility? They are very volatile. They go up and down. However, they have significant growth potential, like Nvidia. 10 years ago, if you had Nvidia, you put, I don't know, $10,000, now you would have $500,000. In Apple, 10 years ago, you had put, $5,000, $10,000 in Apple, now your 10,000 would have been $100,000. That's a growth stock, but they are volatile also, particularly this Nvidia goes up. A few weeks last year, a few months ago, as soon as Donald Trump got elected, it became one share became $400 because they thought, Elon Musk and, Trump are going to get along well. And then now time has passed, suddenly the 400 has dropped to 200 something. Therefore, and, performance, driver, and these are the issues that are behind. This student who he invested in information technology, and also he has invested in different, category sectors. Another sector is healthcare. These are defensive stocks. He invested in Johnson & Johnson, and these are good in giving good dividends, and preference drivers. Aging population. Do you see that? And, these are the issues. Financial. I think he invested in financials. When you remember, he had invested in Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway has two classes of stocks. One is B share. B shares, I don't know, it maybe 4,000, I don't know, 400, how much. But the A share, there is one share of this Berkshire Hathaway, which is class A. One share is $800,000. If you had bought, your parents 60 years ago, 50 years ago had bought one share of this Berkshire Hathaway for $30, now for every $30, they would have had $800,000. Therefore, that is the most successful, one of the most successful stocks of all time, which means if you invested, as I said, $30, $40, 50 years ago, your $40 50 years ago, now the value would have been $800,000. And sensitive to interest rates, which makes sense. Banks are sensitive to interest rates. Why? Because, they are issuing credit cards. When they, interest rates go up, they go down, and therefore, and inflation also has a lot to do with interest rates. And Federal Reserve, because Federal Reserve, can change the interest rates. And then consumer discretionary. And let's see if he invested in consumer discretionary. When the name discretionary, these are another group of stocks. Think about it as the luxury. At their discretion, they buy. They are non-essential. Nike is not essential. Tesla is not essential car you have, Therefore, they are called discretionary. And however, there is another one which is against discretionary, consumer staples. These are the things that you need. What do you need? You need food, correct? You need beverages. Therefore, these are examples of everyday. Some people like to invest in this. That student said he wanted to invest in Coca-Cola. What he's doing a very smart thing in terms of diversification. He has diversified his investment between different sectors, that in case if one sector goes, busted, or, goes, is in trouble, the other sector keeps continuing. Just like drugs. Do you remember when we had Corona? When we had Corona, many stocks were losing, but two sectors were gaining. One was information technology, one was healthcare. Why healthcare? Because these guys were saying, oh, they have a coronavirus, problem. They could solve the problem. They had vaccines, Pfizer vaccine. Therefore, these stocks were going up during corona. Technology, Apple was going up, and maybe HP people were buying computers to work from home. Therefore, these have, it's different. Another example, energy. These are defensive, again, somewhat defensive. Exxon, that these are energy stocks, and they have, their own. Then he had put some, industrial. You remember he said, this student said he bought some steel, therefore, these are industrial materials. Materials is what, he has put. And here, one of our students has this Sherwin-Williams. This is one of the Dow Jones, component that he has. And therefore, real estate there, he said that he is invested in rights. Here it is. That's his investment. We do have these, which are communication stocks, although we consider them as technology stocks as well. Utilities are very defensive stocks, and one reason is that they give good dividends also. Maybe elderlies are interested in that. Different categories of stocks, cyclical versus defensive, and therefore growth versus value. If you have any questions, you let us know, and we want you to become familiar with these, strategies, because you never know. Many of you you work for companies, organizations, and they give you 401k. If you are getting 401k or other similar things, make sure the money that you are getting, make sure it are invested in solid investments. Some people don't know. Their employer deducts money from their 401k, and they put it, without the people knowing. This money is sitting there and earning 1%, 2% interest, which is crazy. However, there might be some funds in that 401k that you have not looked at. I strongly recommend that each one of you who has 401k or other retirement accounts to go and see where that money is sitting. It is a complete mistake, if you ask me, if it is sitting there earning 1% or 2%. The stock market has been up, in the past 2-3 years, it has been significantly up. 20% it has gone up. These 3 days have been bad days for the stock market. It is hopefully temporary, and it's all because Donald Trump is trying to fight with, China and Russia. It's starting a trade war and telling that they are going to put tariffs. When they say that, why it is bad? Trump, of course, has his own reasoning, says these people are letting drugs to come to the U.S. He's trying to penalize them, to scare them not to bring drugs. But what will happen, it scares Walmart, because Walmart, a lot of products of Walmart come from China. If the U.S. government starts putting taxes on the imports, therefore Walmart has to pay much more money for and then who has to pay at the end of these high prices? You and I that are consumers. Therefore, in that case, Walmart is going to lose money and its stocks are going to drop. Therefore, that's why you see in those 2-3 days, stocks drop. And don't worry, it's drop. They call it whenever stocks drop. The professional investors say, oh, this is a buying opportunity. Some professional investors become happy when stocks drop because they consider themselves as a buyer. The people who want to sell do not like to see stocks are dropping. The people who are buyer and they want to buy more and more prefer to see that the stocks, because they pay less for the stocks. Therefore, we want you to become familiar with these concepts. And if you want to be rich, if you want to have a good retirement, if you want to be a good financial manager, you have to know about these issues. The more you know, the better it is. Don't be surprised. I have seen many people, many retired people do not have any extra money in their retirement. They are just waiting for their, checks, social security check, and that is not enough for their lives. But the students who are investing just like this for the retirement, suddenly don't be surprised if this student ends up having several $1 million in his retirement account. And the benefit of it is that when you have investment like this, along the way, it will help you as well financially. Why? If you decide to go and buy a car, You might pay less interest because the mortgage company that is going to give you loan will look at these things. If they see, oh, you have an investment, say, oh, this is a solid person, therefore you pay less interest, and also you will be relaxed when you see you have money waiting for you although you at some point you can take money, I think up to $10,000 if you want to buy the house. But my recommendation to all of you is that try to have these accounts and try to push them, push them up by understanding, researching the stock market, not taking a risk, be risk averse, take some risk, but not all risks, and diversify and look forward and constantly contribute. You don't need to wait until you make $1,000 to contribute. This student, the smart thing he did was that he said he had $25 and put it right in there. And as I said, this traditional IRA is a tax advantage account. Anything stocks go up. Suppose if he has $1,000 of stocks, tomorrow, next year, it becomes $5,000. He doesn't pay any taxes on these. They will stay in his account, until he retires. Whenever he retires, it becomes $1 million, hopefully. And at that time, when he sells them, then at that time, he has to pay, taxes on them. And those who, invest in Roth IRA, they don't pay taxes when they sell because they don't get any credit up front. This student is going to get credit from the IRS for investing in traditional. That's why he gets some of his taxes back. And that's why when he sells them, when he retires, he has to give money back to Uncle Sam for the taxes he didn't pay up front. But the people who invest in Roth IRA, it comes from their salary after tax, after they have paid their taxes on their salary, then, the IRS tells them. But this student also cannot invest more than $7,000 in traditional IRA every year because the U.S. government is smart. If it lets let everybody to invest in here, the people, millionaires, are going to put all of their money in, traditional IRA or Roth IRA. Why do they do that? Because these are tax advantage accounts. This person is going to get his taxes back from the IRS based on how much money he has put. Therefore, IRS puts a limit. That's why it has a limit of $7,000. Can this student invest more than this? More than $7,000? Yes, he has to open a regular regular in a brokerage account and invest in that. That is not tax advantage accounts. Here, this student can sell his stocks. If his stock next year becomes 2,000, 3,000, he can sell the stocks. But as he doesn't take the money out, as long as he doesn't take any money out, he doesn't pay any taxes. Even if he takes the money out, before he is 59 and a half, the IRS will, penalize him by 10% because IRS, the plan is to help him, to encourage him not to touch this money. Let it stay there until he retires. That way, when he retires, he can have a very comfortable, happy retirement. And of course, anytime you have a lot of money in there, you will be happy to see a lot of money, is waiting for you. Also, if this student has 401k, he can also contribute to 401k, has similar features like here, like IRA. The difference is that usually 401ks, do not allow you to buy individual stocks like he bought, he can buy Apple, he can buy Coca-Cola. But when he has 401k, in 401k, usually you can buy mutual funds. This student already bought some, they might allow him to buy SPLG. Another student, here, SWPPX, is S&P 500 index. Another student, I showed you her the video, she had bought SPDR, SPDR, S&P 500. These are the same. This is a product of Schwab, and that is product of another company, but they go up. And let me go and tell you what happens today. As I said, is a bad day for stock market. Look at here, it's not good at all. And if you look at here, NASDAQ has dropped by 2.61%. Very bad day for the stock market. The Dow Jones, 1%. That means if you had $100, on average, you had lost $1 of it. If you had $100 in the NASDAQ stocks, you had 500, S&P 500. Look at here we have it. Here, S&P 500 has lost 1.78, which means if he had invested $100 in S&P, he would have his $100 would have dropped by $1.78. But that shouldn't scare you. These are, these are the issues, temporary issues of pulling the stock market. It will come back up, and these students are going to make a lot of money, let me assure you. And if you have any questions, let me know.